So something else that's helpful to think about before going on and looking at the if-then stuff. So this is something you should look at before Joy of Code number 5 probably, is the idea of return types besides void. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So we have a turtle here, and in the Joy of Code videos, we saw that we have, what was it? Oh yeah, we looked at move and turn, and we saw that actually both move and turn require have input parameters of type int. So you can add one int to the move. You have to add give an int. So you have to pass an int. When you make the method call, you have to give it a number, like 10, and that'll make it move. Or we saw that here you could just type in the act class, move 10, right? And then when you make the turtle act, he will automatically move 10, right? So there was move and there was turn. So similar idea for turn. You have to give the input of, what kind of turning you want to do. I'll put 90 in there. So okay, and that's the turn. Oh yeah, so let me just show you real quick too how turning works. The idea is that we're at if you're at 0 and if you're facing this way and you turn 90, you're going to turn to face that way. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about turning and rotation in a second, but let me. But the idea behind turning is that whichever way you're facing, you're going to turn that amount. So I can keep saying turn 90. If I say turn 90 again, where is it? If I say turn 90 again, I'll turn 90 more. Okay. Let's see. So, but what I wanted to talk about. So, these guys move and turn. So the input parameters, they need a number, but there's also this word here, void, that comes in front of it. So it says void move int, void turn int. What the void means is that you don't get any information back from these methods. Okay, so some methods require you to give them information. So we need to give information to this method. We need to give move an integer. We need to give turn an integer, but we don't get any information back. There are also methods that will give you information back. So there's this getX method. Okay. Now getX happens to not require any inputs because we see here parentheses with no inputs. You will have there are methods that have a return type and require inputs. Okay, but every method either has a void return type or some kind of a type associated with it, a return type associated with it. It could be an int. In this case, it's a world, get world. It could be a Greenfoot image. But here, it's an int. So if I just make the method call to get y, what happens was it immediately comes up with a method result. Okay, we didn't get the method call window because it didn't need any information to do its work. Okay, sometimes you'll get the method call method method call window first, and sometimes you won't. So here it just said int get x, and we see the parentheses with nothing in it, which is why it immediately came back with the result. So it says turtle.getX returned, so it's returning a value of int 268. So what that's giving us is the x coordinate of the turtle. So let me close this. Notice right now it's 268. Let me close this. If I so that moving in the x direction is moving back and forth, right? It's kind of like the coordinate system in that you might have seen in algebra or coordinate geometry, but it's not exactly, because up here is 0, 0, and then x gets bigger this way and y gets bigger this way. So we'll get into that more later, but I just want to show you now by moving this turtle all the way over here, we changed the x value. So if I now say get x, now the x value is only 32 because he's all the way down here. And I can make the x value bigger, moving all the way over here, and say get x, and now it's 556. Okay, so all right, so that's how the get x and get y is similar, right? What I wanted to show you though is that you can actually use those methods to give you values. If I say, actually, if I just say get x in here and compile, let's see what happens. And if I say act, nothing happens. So when you call getX from the interface like this, it'll pop up a window and give you the number. But when you call it from inside, when you write it inside the editor and call it this way, it doesn't do anything, because it basically, and the reason is that it's not directly affecting the turtle, right? When you say move, you're giving an order to the turtle. When you call something like getX, you're saying it to get information from the turtle. Okay, so we could say something like, so we know that move 10 will make us move forward 10, right? Well, we can use getX, since getX returns an integer, right? We know that getX, that the return type of getX is an integer. So since it returns an integer, we can use that integer just like we would use the number 10. We could say turn getX and move 10. Okay, so notice there's a lot of parentheses stuff going in here, and you need to be careful about this. GetX is a method. So even though it doesn't have any parameters, even though you don't have to give it any information, you still need to add the parentheses here for getX. And then this opening and closing parentheses here are for the turn method. So the turn method, this time, instead of just typing in a plain old number like an 8 or a 9 or whatever for turn to tell us the amount of the turn, we're typing in getX. Okay. And x will change depending on where we are on the screen, right? So let's just see what happens with that. I'll compile it, and we'll put the turtle on the screen and run it. And whoa, that's kind of interesting behavior, right? So you can experiment with this. You might also want to play around with something like set location or set rotation, right? Where you can change the so rotation is another method call that you can make to, and the way set rotation works is, like, let's say if I set rotation to 9, let's say what, 180, let's say. If I set the rotation to 180, it sets it in this direction. So the idea for set rotation is, if you set rotation to 0, it'll always point this way. If you set rotation to 180, it'll always point this way. 90 is always this way, and 270 is always that way. So with turn, it'll, if you're at 0 and you say turn 90, you'll go to 90. If you say turn, if you're at 90, if you're facing this direction, if you're facing straight down, and you say turn 90, you'll go to 180. So turn keeps you moving around, but set rotation just sets you in the direction that you've entered. So if you say set rotation 180, it'll always set you facing straight west. Okay, so that's the difference with that. And there's also set location that you can play around with. So yeah, so try using some of these things. You could move. I think like look and see what you have in here. You have also like get rotation will get you a number, right? So you could try putting in a move by the rotation or whatever, and just play around with those and see what you can do.